Hello, hello. My name is Jay Walker, and this is Blind Dates. Welcome, if this is your first time, which I'm hoping it is because it's the first episode. I'm here with my guest, Rich Yamamoto. Rich, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I am doing a-okay. I honestly had a little breakdown trying to set up Zoom, but I mean, that's to be expected, honestly, at this point in my life.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, Rich, tell me. Who are you? What is your name? What are you going to school for?
So as Jay has stated before, I am Rich Yamamoto, and I'm going to school for a secondary education degree in my associates. And then I'll get my undergrad in elementary education, um, at Wichita State through their online program. And then I'll get my master's at some point in the future as a teacher of students with visual impairments. From where I have no idea yet, but it is something I am still researching.
And you are yourself blind.
Yes, I am myself blind.
And what is your disease? What's your eye disorder?
So so I have Norrie's disease, which is a genetic condition that was passed down through my family tree. Um, my grandpa on my mom's side had it, passed it to my mom, so she was a carrier, or she is a carrier. She's not dead. Um, who then passed it to my sister and I. My sister is a carrier, and I am somebody who does not carry it. I possess it. So I have it. So I've been left. So uh, I've been left totally blind. With the potential for hearing loss in my early 20s, which hasn't happened quite yet, but it's still early. So,
And how
yeah,
old are you?
I am 20. I will be 21 at the time of this recording in 3 days.
All right, that's exciting. Happy birthday.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
thanks.
okay, so you said that there's family history. So
Yes,
did your mom know when you were in the womb, when you were up in her stuff, that you were gonna be blind?
gross. Um, I don't know. I think there was like it was a possibility, but I don't remember if it was like a if it was like a for sure thing that she knew. I don't believe so. I don't believe it was like a full like she knew. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
I
she
don't
had like
think
an idea that it might happen.
yeah, I think there was like an inkling of an idea, yeah.
Okay. Um, so having said that, you were born blind, completely blind, correct?
Yes.
So okay. So I am I dabble in psychology, I dabble in social work, I dabble in all of those things. And one of the major things that we learn about is how kids learn, and that is through interpretation and through mirroring. And basically, what that means is that kids will watch their parents or guardians or the outside world do whatever they have to do, and that's how they learn how to do things. So, from your perspective, like being a child, not being able to watch your parents, like brush their teeth, cook something in the kitchen, tie their shoe, like how was it taking in information? Like did you find that it was more challenging to learn, or did you see or did it seem like it was like not even that big of a deal because you didn't know any other way?
So I don't know. I think because I was born with it, I just kind of knew growing up that I had to adapt to it. Therefore, it would take me longer to learn certain things like how to throw a ball, how to throw it in the right direction and not at someone's face, how to how to tie my shoes.
That is
Like
the
a
right
lot of
direction.
those, you're right. You're right. But how to make sure that it's how to make sure that I'm tying my shoes correctly, things like that, like that you don't really think about. um the things that you don't really think about definitely took a lot longer for me to learn, but I don't know how much longer versus like somebody who can see. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
long those things took, and things like that. So it really depends on what I was doing. A lot of things I learned quickly, and a lot of things I had to learn slowly.
What were one of the things that you had to learn slowly?
Tying my shoes, I still don't know how to do it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
Me too, though. I
Yeah,
feel that.
yeah, like I can do it, it just takes me like 20 minutes, so it takes a little while.
Yeah. It's interesting because like I feel like I was born sighted. I was sighted all the way up until I was 15. And then I went completely and irreversibly blind dramatically and spontaneously and whatever.
Oh, it's a
But
tail.
um it is a tale. But I can just imagine like how I took for granted being able to see and being able to, do the simple things like tie my shoes and brush my teeth and shape my legs and all that stuff without having to think about it because I was just shown how to do those things. Or even like there's basic things that people learn how to do through media. Like, I don't know, like something that the first thing that came to my head was like learning how to kiss. Like, you don't learn how to kiss through your parents or your grandparents or whatever. Like, you learn how to kiss through movies, you learn how to kiss through TV shows, you learn how to kiss through all that stuff. So, as a blind person, I can only imagine not having that context in the beginning, how difficult it must be to take in that information and understand exactly what it means.
Sure, sure. Well, and I didn't really think about that per se, but I mean, like other things too, like facial expressions and how you express yourself, and whether you're facing somebody. Sometimes it's hard to tell, like if they have a microphone on and they're booming in your face, you don't know if they're behind you or in front of you. So it's, those things are kind of hard to do. A lot of it is, a lot of our world is a visual world, so we kind of have to adapt to it and figure it out as we go. So uh I think like one of the hardest, aside from tying my shoes, like, but one of the hardest things that I've had to like really focus on is like facial expressions. What is my expression when I'm looking at this person? Am I happy to see them, or do I look pissed off? More than likely, I'm probably happy to see them. But gauging on, the way my face is or the way I'm set right now, I could be pissed without knowing it. I could be giving them the dirtiest look and not realize it. So that's always hard.
Stink face. Um, so having said that, like talking about learning information and stuff like that, did you go to, I don't want to say normal kindergarten, but like, did you go to sighted people kindergarten?
Oh yeah, I went to mainstream kindergarten. Oh yeah. I was mainstream until 10th grade. So I did the summer programs at the School for the Blind in Kansas City, um, from like first grade up to graduation grade. And then I started working there, during the summers. I started last summer working there, and then continued working there full time during the school year, back in August. But yeah, I went to mainstream kindergarten, and I honestly can't remember how it all went. But I remember it being okay, especially because like kids at that point in time were more interested than afraid. So it was like, you know, it wasn't as hard to uh what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't as hard to adapt as one might think, at least in my situation. I know other people have had it
Hmm.
way worse, but I was kind of lucky with how I had it up until high school, because high school is when you start evolving and changing and figuring out who you are. and figuring out whether you're like, oh yeah, I like this guy, or nah, F this guy, so it's like it just really depends. um some grades are harder than
Mm-hmm.
others for different reasons, and some grades are easier than others for different reasons, and some grades were just weird and there's no explaining it, they were just weird.
My freshman year of high school was a paradox, and I will say that until the end of time.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I was not in the Milky Way galaxy.
Right. My fifth grade year was real weird, and my third grade year was real weird. But like I can't describe, like I can't tell you, I can't give you a reason why it was weird. It just gave that vibe of like I'm in the Twilight
No,
Zone
I
right now. This
understand,
is
but I get it.
very intimidating. Yeah.
Okay, you said something that kind of caught my attention. You said, I can't remember your exact words, but you basically said like kids transition from curiosity to fear. At what point in time did the kids start transitioning to fear over curiosity?
Uh I don't know if it was that they transitioned from curiosity to fear, at least in my case, more so than it was curiosity to I don't like this guy anymore. Or it's easier to pick on me because we're all teenagers and we're all trying to figure out our own ways. Um, and so when we as teenagers, we're going to start making people's lives living hell, right? Because that's what you do. And so um, I think it was more so that than anything. I don't know, but I think it could have been based in fear, but that was more like start of high school. So freshman year of high school, I guess would be the best time for
Is
that
it
to have like been
less
happening.
is it less fear and more just general like naivety?
Maybe. I know for some kids it's definitely fear. And I know for others sometimes it might be naivety or just sheer ignorance and just not knowing
Okay.
how to work with somebody with a disability or how to be friends with somebody with a disability. So sometimes you would like they would just pick on them instead so that they wouldn't have to worry about it. Which doesn't make it right, of course, but it's the only justification I can really give for why it's that way. And it's not even really a justification. It's the only real reason I can give to maybe explain why. It doesn't really justify it, but it's the only thing I can really give.
I understood. So, moving forward,
Indeed.
but also moving backwards in time, if you, as yourself today, knowing what you know now and having gone through what you've gone through, if you could go back to your 8-year-old self, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him for the future?
Let me think. What advice could I give my 8-year-old self? I don't know. My 8-year-old self is an idiot. So whether he would have taken this advice or not
My
is
8-year-old self is a fucking loser.
cool. We can swear on this podcast. All right. Awesome. Um,
Oh, yeah. This is my podcast, baby. You can say fuck whenever you want.
all right. So I think the advice I could give my 8-year-old self is something my grandmother once told me which was assholes are always going to be assholes. And so you have to figure out which assholes are good and which assholes are bad. And then you have to separate the assholes from the
Mm.
assholes. And it's real hard to do that. So pick your assholes, but don't be one.
You you gotta separate the assholes that shit on you and the assholes that give you cute little toots.
Sure, yeah.
You gotta
Um,
you gotta get yourself a tutor.
right. Yeah, it's much easier to be shit on than to be pissed on. So much rather be like, and that's another advice, some piece of advice someone gave me. It was like, it's much easier to be shit on because it's easier to clean up than it is to be pissed on because you might have to deal with that for a while.
Is that the same advice that you think you'd give to a newly blind person?
Uh, we were talking about this a while ago, and I don't remember what advice I gave you. I think I said something to the effect of "You'll be all right," but it's gonna be rough. Um,
No,
but
it wasn't you. Don't pretend like it was you.
no, I said you'll be all right, but it's gonna be rough. Our friend said it was gonna be hell. I didn't say that. I said was
Yeah, that
I
you did say.
said I said you'll be all right, but it'll be rough. But our friend Gabe said it's gonna be hell. So I didn't, yeah.
Our friend Gabe, our friend Gabe
He did
gave
not
me,
sugarcoat, I did.
no, yeah. My friend Gabe, our friend Gabe, the Gabe, gave us or gave me a very unique piece of information when I first went blind. And honestly, it's still one of the best pieces of advice anyone's ever given me, even though when he was saying it, probably was just like being a douche. But when I first went blind, they had the teachers ask some of the students, like, if you could give advice to a newly blind person, like, what would you say? And all the kids were saying, like, positive things, like, all this, whatever, like, you'll be fine, blah, 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 blah. And then it got to Gabe, and he said, you got to tell her that this is going to be hell and that this is going to be the hardest thing that she will ever do. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. And I think if I hadn't been told that, I would have I would have known that the situation would have been hard to go through and everything, but I think that if I hadn't been told straight up by somebody who is in the same situation as me, this shit is going to rock your world, I would not have been prepared for it.
It was nice that he gave you a little heads up. And I was just like, you'll be fine. It'll be difficult for a minute, but you'll be all right. But I think like
Yeah, but
looking
I
back on it
think
now, like
that's
what
there's a lag. This is awkward. Okay, okay, okay. So, I think that the thing is like there's a difference in perspective because I don't think it's necessarily like one piece of advice is bad, one piece of advice is good, blah, blah, blah. It's his perspective, Rich's perspective is I've been completely blind my whole life. This is how I've adapted. This is how I've been able to get through it. It's not a big deal to me. Whereas Gabe was newly blind and was just going through the process and was like, hi, what? So I
yeah.
think that
I think that's fair.
genuinely contributed to the process.
Yeah. And everybody wanted my piece of advice at that point. And I was like, I don't really have a good thing to say because I've been doing this for so long. Ask someone else who's not been doing this for as long as I have. But I think like now, like looking back
Yeah.
on that, like the advice I would give to somebody who's a newly blind, which just makes me think of like the newlyweds on TV. Like,
The newly blinds.
yeah,
Called
exactly. Like
TLC.
someone should make a TV show about that, just like a docu series of like all the blind people that are just losing their vision and they're just going like, "Ah, shit,"
Just cut running
like
into walls, losing their mind, being sad. Yeah, that was
literally.
the first
So
2 years of my blind experience.
right, and so like I think the advice I would give now though is like you're going to need to get as much training as you possibly can on how to like do things independently. So take your braille training seriously, take your tech training seriously, take your uh, activities of daily living skills seriously. So, like your cooking skills, your cleaning skills, take all of those trainings as seriously as you possibly can because you have no idea when you're going to need it. Well, actually, you have a pretty good idea of when you're going to need it. It's when you don't have the help anymore that you're like, okay, I really need to start making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to make sure that
Yeah.
I am as independent as humanly possible and that I, can still succeed in the world with a disability. I think that you have to have that mindset of if I can't succeed, like if I don't put my mind to this, like then I'm going to struggle more than somebody who puts their mind to it and makes it work. Because I still had my issues going through this too. Like um they were a little different than say yours or Gabe's struggles just because you guys were adapting and starting from square one at a later age. Mine was more like I didn't have the confidence that I could do this stuff on my own. I didn't have the confidence that I could use the oven and not melt my hands off or use the stove and have
Yep.
Carl the llama eat my hands in the process. So
Um, well, that, sir, is great advice. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. You didn't see it. I mean, you obviously didn't see it, but I was shaking my fist in the air when you were saying stuff about like learning how to use, like, be human. Because if you don't know how to function, then you're going to be living with your parents until you're 35, until you're 40, until you're 50. And then you're going to be sitting there wondering, like, why couldn't I have just done this? And it's literally like, take the extra time, put in the 2 months, the 6 months, the year long time that it takes to learn these processes so that when you're 30, 40, 50, or say you go blind when you're 40 and are learning these processes, like, so that you don't have to worry about that, like, for long periods of time. It's the more you know, the sooner you know it, the easier your life will be.
Oh yeah. I think what sucks too is like, especially if you're an adult that loses your vision at a later age, you're screwed because you don't have like a school to back you. There are
Yeah.
services in the like in your area that'll help you with a visual impairment, but there's I don't know how good each service state by state is. So it could be, you could have really good services or you could have services that need some help, need some need some more work, So it really depends on where you're at and what you're doing. And if you like I said, if you lose it at a later age, sometimes it can be real hard to bounce back from that. So
Hmm. And I think one thing that excuse me, I think one thing that comes with like losing your sight at a later age and losing your sight when you're, even when you're like fucking 10 years old, like it's different than losing your sight when you're 0 years old. And
right.
um I think because of that, like it is important to like have a good library of resources and ideas and people that like can reach out that you can reach out to help you, and to have like the pieces of like technology is so important. It just is. Like even if you aren't like coding things and doing, I don't fucking know how to work Google. I can't work Google Drive, and that's okay. I'm still going to college. And but you know what? I can make a spreadsheet. I can do a PowerPoint. I can do the basic stuff. You don't have to be an
Right.
expert, but you just got to know somewhat how to do it. So, my next question to you is what like what pieces of technology in your life do you find to be the most helpful
Ah, that
outside of
is a
like your
very
cane, obviously?
that is a very good question. Well, obviously my Mac is a lifesaver. um I use my Mac for everything, work and school related. I get into Google Drive and Google Docs and things like that with my Mac. I do everything with my Mac. I would be lost without my Mac. Um, I have a Windows PC that I do some work on, not a whole ton, but enough to get me through. And then I do a lot with I have a braille display that I can connect through Bluetooth or USB to my laptop, and it'll give me the braille output that the screen reader is showing. And so that's really helpful because I can also practice my braille reading and writing skills. And I'm also in the process of trying to acquire what's called a braille note taker. And it is a device that runs Android that you can like access like third-party applications. It has its own built-in file manager and integrated access to Google Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox. Has its own email client, word processor, internet, uh, a bunch of different things. It's basically like a Braille
Mm-hmm.
computer or a Braille tablet that doesn't have the screen.
Yeah.
So it's
So,
very
correct me correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though you sort of heavily rely on Braille as a tool.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And so, and see, it's funny because I don't. I like, of course, I have, you know, I'm trying to think. I don't have anything around my house that's brailled right now, except for, actually, no, I don't have anything. But like, if, I can read elevator buttons, I could read menus, I can read stuff like that. But like, generally, the pieces of technology that I use are like audio based, like the Pen Friend or Alexa, or um, like talking shit. I don't know, just talking things that you can get off of
yeah,
like Maxi aids and like stuff like that.
yeah, and I have those things too. Um,
Hmm. So I
I
think
used to talk to
I
games
just
too.
find it interesting that like I find it interesting that like for someone who's, more heavily reliant on Braille, you have a tendency to lean more towards like Braille devices, Braille note takers, Braille, Braille, Braille. Whereas someone like me who's not heavily reliant on Braille or who isn't like super like fluent in it is more reliant on things like audio technology because I find that to be
Sure.
easier, even though we have the same level of blindness.
Sure. Oh, and the thing too is like the other thing you have to take into consideration too is everybody's technology skills are different. Like nobody's technology skills are the same. And so it's kind of like
Exactly.
and so what device works for me may not work for you or Gabe. We'll just keep using Gabe as an example. I'm sure he won't mind.
We'll just keep
Um,
using Gabe.
yeah, it's always good for anyway. No, shout out to Gabe. But anyway, so like we use very different devices. I use, Braille devices and some audio devices, and then you use, audio stuff. And I think, we still get the same amount of work done in the same amount of time. We just use different stuff, and that's cool.
hmm And I think like that has something to say about, for especially for people who go blind at a later age, especially, people who, say you went blind today and you're 60 years old, you may not know how to use a MacBook, you may not know how to use these things. Like my grandma doesn't know how to use a phone, and that's okay.
Right.
But like if she were to go blind, that would be an issue. So you're right. It's just super reliant on like what level of technology expert you are. And so like for
Yeah.
me, who's much less of a technology expert than you are, my stuff is a lot less like high tech. So
Right.
I would say my advice would be if you have a tendency to lean more towards Braille, you rely on Braille, you like Braille, use things that have like Braille displays, use OneNotes, use all that shit. Focus 40s, all the stuff. But if you have a tendency to struggle with Braille, um, maybe lean more towards audio devices and stuff that will make your life easier. Now, if you are just absolutely 100% down to learn Braille, you want to learn it, then absolutely get a Focus 40, get a Braille note, get one of those things to teach yourself how to do that. But
Yeah.
you got to know that you cannot be frustrated with yourself when you don't get it immediately.
It's okay to be frustrated as well, but it can't be like your end all be all, I think as well. Like you have to be willing
hmm
to also say, okay, well, this is a learning process, therefore it's going to take me a while to learn, and that's okay.
And I think that's one thing I learned really quickly when I went blind is I was, I took for granted the fact that I never really had to put in hard work for things because it came easily to me. Like school came really easily to me, like sports came easily to me, instruments came easily to me, all that kind of stuff came really quickly and easily to me when I could see. And then the moment I lost my vision, I realized I was a visual learner. And so I had to
Oh no.
completely yeah, I had to completely revamp how I um completely revamp how I learn things. But um
Yeah.
that will conclude the first episode. Um Maybe if it will let me navigate. It's not gonna. Okay. Okay. All right. We can edit this part out. But okay, so Rich, do you have any social media? Do you have a Facebook? Do you have anything that you would like to plug to the audience?
I let's see. What do I have? Um, I have an Instagram, but it's private. Um, I have
You have
a
6 seconds.
okay, not at the moment.
Bye.
See ya.
I'll upgrade to premium.
Yikes.
Oh wait, no, we have 8 minutes and 44 seconds left. I'm silly. I'm
Oh, okay.
silly. I'm
Okay.
silly.
Okay. So then, okay, we'll edit this out, but that's okay. Uh, So a I have an Instagram that you can follow if you would like. It is private, so I'll have to like approve you, which I can do. My Instagram is McMoto1825, MCMOTO 1825. 1825 is my Instagram. I don't really post there often, but I I do stuff on there sometimes. And that's kind of where I'm most active. Is my Instagram really.
All right. Well, that is super cool.
Indeed.
Um, okay, well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me on the first episode of Blind Dates. Did you
You're
enjoy our
welcome.
date?
I did. I did enjoy our date. It
Check,
was awesome.
please. Very romantic. I loved it.
Indeed. Right.
Alrighty, buddy. Thank you so much for joining
Okay.
me. I will see you on another day.
All right. Thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. This has been so much fun.
I will probably have you on again.
You probably will, knowing how we work.
Yeah. All right. I'll see
All
ya.
right. See you later.